Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in today's video, we're going to be talking to you about, do they know that they're avoidant? This is such a good question. And we're going to cover a lot of the components of this that you might be thinking about or trying to figure these things out, because it's hard to know if somebody knows if they're avoidant.
It's kind of like asking, does the sky know that it's blue? Does water know that it's wet?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that you don't get too many avoidant clients that are really profoundly insightful, right? They just seem kind of disconnected with what's going on in their unconscious.
Right. It would take a lot for them to get to that point where they're realizing it and self-reflective. Sometimes you can see a self-reflective person who has more of an avoidant attachment style, but typically it's taken something that acts as a mirror for them to really reflect and look at that.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times when you're going through a situation and you're realizing your attachment style and theirs, you're thinking, wait a minute, do they know they're avoidant? Should I let them know? And that's a big thing. I'm going to text them. I'm going to send them this video.
Oh, this is going to change their life,
yeah.
right?
Once they see this video, they're going to be like, oh, I'm the problem. Good luck. Don't do it.
Yeah, it typically does not work that way.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing, though, because when you learn about attachment theory and you start to figure out, oh, I'm anxious and they were avoidant. And if we had worked on this, we wouldn't be in this anxious avoidant trap that we're now stuck in. And you just kind of get stuck in, do they know? Do they really know that they are like this?
And a lot of times for many of you, learning about attachment theory has been incredibly insightful. You know, you're able to figure out things about yourself and you're hoping that your partner or your ex will be able to do the same for themselves. We want to talk a little bit about what can hinder somebody who's more avoidant from realizing their avoidance or from seeing it head on. The first thing really is the power of denial, right? Avoidance became avoidant because oftentimes their feelings have been dismissed, their needs have been dismissed time and time again. So they have learned to suppress their own emotions. They've learned to not be as reflective as a result.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times they don't even really know what's going on within them emotionally. It's hard for them to identify it, verbalize it to you, to really have that kind of insight sometimes.
Yeah, you have to realize that they've grown up in this environment. Okay, they didn't become avoidant. They weren't secure and they became avoidant overnight. That's not what happens. They grew up from infancy being neglected, abandoned. They were told that what they want wasn't important, ignored, left in the crib. And they get to the point where they give up. And, you know, you can kind of see that in the still face experiment that we've talked about for a long time. There's a video on it. Go check it out. And, you know, you get to a place where you just kind of give up on people being able to be there for you or that you can count on them.
Right. And sometimes because of growing up in this way, they might not acknowledge the trauma that they faced through that or the pain that they faced through that. Because if you're feeling pain from being neglected, you have nobody to express that pain to, and you're just going to be more neglected.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes they just suppress that, they push that down, or they could not realize the severity of what they've been through. They can view it as not a big deal. Sometimes you'll hear people who are very wildly avoidant say, no, I've had a great childhood. Nothing went wrong. Everything was fine.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's almost this sense of denial of really seeing their experiences for what they are, for acknowledging their pain for what it was, because growing up, there was no use for that. You know, it wouldn't have been seen, it wouldn't have been acknowledged, it wouldn't have been empathized with. And so in their adult life, it's just a continuation of that.
And a lot of times they wind up saying the things that their parents said. Right? Oh, you're gonna cry about that. I'll give you something to cry
Or
about.
other families have it worse. Other people have it worse. I had a roof over my head. You know, the typical phrases that you hear over and over again.
Yeah, so everything was minimized. And so, you know, of course they're not going to believe that a big thing happened to them because they were minimized their whole childhood while they were going through it. Right? So because that is so painful, they kind of use defense mechanisms to ignore the pain, so they don't feel the pain, so they don't have to experience. I mean, imagine being a child, little. Remember, we don't think the same as adults, right? You know, if you have kids, you see how they develop, right? And really until they get to the, you know, like 10 years old, they're very small and their thinking isn't so logical. And so imagine growing up and your entire life is around these adults that are minimizing your needs, you know, threatening you, yelling at you, maybe abusing you, neglecting you, and it's too painful. So you have to kind of isolate yourself from the world, and you kind of shut down, and you have to find a way to survive this traumatic environment. And so they're in a form of denial.
Yeah. When something is too intense for your mind to handle, your brain goes into these psychological defense mechanisms, denial being one of them. This didn't happen, or this didn't happen as severely as you think that it did. So it's kind of a way to cope when it's difficult to face things head on.
It's interesting because a lot of times when you confront an avoidant, they deny it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you mean? I'm not avoidant. This is baloney.
But even on something that they've done that...
Oh, that too.
Yeah, they'll deny it. And then they'll blame you for the very thing that they've been doing. I've seen that a lot.
This can happen
Another
too.
defense mechanism, really. Yeah.
Sometimes we hear avoidants being aware of their behaviors, but they almost double down. They almost act as if they don't care that they're avoidant. You know, they'll have this viewpoint of, I like the way I am.
Oh, yeah. They say that a lot. It's so true.
They have this
I don't
need-
have a problem with me. You have a problem with me. And if you have a problem with me, why are you with me? How many times have you heard that one?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
They have this
And
need to
they're like-
defend the behavior.
And it's tough because it's like, how do you get around that one? It's like, oh, that is true.
Yeah, they tend to double down on it. And that's another way to kind of protect themselves, to say, you know, no, this is who I am. This kind of attitude towards it, almost as if it's unchanging. Well, there's nothing I can do about it, so why does it matter?
Yeah.
You know, and that you can also see that being a repetition of maybe things that they've heard growing up.
Yep.
Well, there's nothing you can do. Who cares, right? There's that kind of attitude.
I'm not going to change. You're not going to change. What's the point?
What does
Why
it
bother?
matter? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see those who are more avoidant have a more pragmatic approach, meaning they have this viewpoint that they are the way that they are to protect themselves or for a reason. And sometimes you have to remember that those mechanisms within them developed because they had to at the time. Like I said before, when they were going through any kind of pain or emotional turmoil, they had nobody to express that to at the time.
Yeah.
So those avoidant behaviors helped them as a kid to cope and to make it through. However, as an adult, especially when you're trying to connect with them, those tools aren't helpful, right? It's like having a tool in the wrong scenario. It's like,
It's like you need a screwdriver and they have a hammer.
Exactly. And so sometimes they'll try to defend, no, I have this hammer because I need to use this hammer, or else things will be really bad if I don't have this hammer, and things have to be this way because you can't trust anybody and people are out to get you. They have this mentality of, my avoidance is still protecting me and I still need to be this way, or else people are going to take advantage of me. So you can see that high level of distrust.
Yep.
So they can be aware that they're avoidant, but they will defend the fact that they need to still be avoidant and it's still useful for them in all circumstances, which also has them denying how it affects their partners and affects their loved ones in adulthood.
Sure. And it affects so many different areas of their life.
Yeah. So many of you are asking this question because there is that part of you that wants to shake them and say, don't you realize how you're affecting me? Don't you see what's happening? Don't try to convince them. A lot of times they are not receptive to information about their behaviors, that kind of feedback. And sometimes they can perceive, you telling them about their avoidance as criticism, as, something negative. And so you have to be mindful. When you have a good rapport, and not during a breakup and not when somebody's your ex, when you have a good rapport with someone, of course you can give feedback in a way that you think that they might be more receptive, but absolutely not during a breakup. And especially if they've ended the relationship, that is not the time to say, oh, I know why we broke up. It's because you're avoidant.
Yeah.
They're not going to pick up too well to that.
Yeah,
most likely.
Oh, so this is my fault then, right? You're going to hear something along those lines. It's really tough because you're kind of looking for this answer of, well, how can I do this? How can I tell them? How can I show them? How can I let them know that they're avoidant? And there's really no great way to go about
It's
it.
hard.
Believe
Yeah.
me, I've looked at all the different ways, and if there was one magical one way that worked, I'd tell you to do it. But unfortunately, they just don't take that information well.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's something wrong with me, right?
Yep.
What's wrong with me?
And
There's
a lot
nothing
of
wrong
times
with me.
they can be reluctant to going to therapy. Many of you will try to suggest like couples therapy and things like that. A lot of times they can be reluctant to therapy. And a lot of times they have this feeling of not wanting to be analyzed, you know?
Sure. I just did an email coaching today where the guy had recommended therapy and she ended it. Right? He recommended couples counseling.
Yeah, yeah. Because there's this sense of ownership over their own experiences. They have that fear of being smothered ultimately or being controlled because they've learned to be hyper independent. They've learned to trust themselves. So going into therapy, which is a space that is therapeutic, where you share your emotions with someone to help guide you through them and talk about them, that can feel very threatening to their own, experiences and view of them.
Yeah. Then
you're not going to change my mind. Nothing's going to change. And,
then they go for 2 sessions and like, I didn't like them.
right.
And they're like, okay, when you get somebody else, and they'll go for 1 session and be like, I didn't like them either. Therapy doesn't work.
Right.
You're going to go to a stranger? You're going to go to a stranger to fix my problems? That right?
Yeah.
That's one of their big go-to answers. Oh, okay, so a stranger is going to fix us.
And a lot of times it takes time to get to that point where you build rapport with a counselor where they can really be vulnerable. It's not 1 or 2 sessions. It's going repeatedly until you can slowly, bring down those walls and build that trust, just like you would in a relationship. So sometimes you'll go to couples therapy with an avoidant partner. The first couple sessions, they're not even themselves. They're showing up like Thai, very proper, and they're not really willing to talk about the fights or the nasty parts of the relationship. And you, especially if you're more anxious, you're going to like trauma dump during the therapy session, so it can, especially in the first couple sessions, not give the therapist an accurate view of what's really going on in the dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be challenging for the therapist to see what's really happening. People will present some information, or they'll distort reality, or they'll do things to make you look like terrible and they're innocent. So it can be really challenging. And understand that, many of you have this mindset of, well, if they get into therapy, they can get better. Well, you got to remember that when you go into therapy, if you're going to deal with those very challenging issues and all that trauma, it's going to bring up a lot for them. It's not like you talk about it and you're magically better.
Yeah.
Now you're going to be really anxious. Now you're going to have maybe some PTSD, some flashbacks, nightmares, and all kinds of bad stuff is going to come up. So sometimes even going into therapy, all of this negative, painful experiences come up for them, and now they want to end the relationship because they're not ready to be in a relationship because they're going through all the trauma.
Yeah. Yep. So it could be a really challenging thing to try to figure it out with an avoidant partner, or try to repair things with an avoidant ex.
Yep.
Now, we do see, like I'd said before, during a breakup, sometimes those who have been more avoidant, they kind of wake up or realize how they've been avoidant. It can take a pretty significant or profound experience in their life to have them reflect back and really take a look at their behaviors.
Yeah.
You have to be okay with them doing their personal work. A lot of you, especially if you're more anxious, you want to fix it. You want to fix it for them. There's that part of you that wishes you could just like reach into their life, kind of like you're a surgeon, and just, fix things up and then sew them up and put a nice bow on it.
Yeah.
You have to be okay with them doing their own personal work without some of your intervention, at least some of the time.
Yeah.
We know that you want to help, and we know that you want this relationship to work. And many of you have so much empathy for your avoidant partners. You want to see them get better. It hurts you to know that they've blocked out their own emotions like that, even if they're hurting you in the process of it. We have to let people go through their own work.
Yeah. It's not easy because a lot of times they'll even tell you, you treated me better than anyone ever has. I mean, that we hear that a lot. That's an uncomfortable feeling for them. Think about that. Somebody feels like you care about them more than anyone else ever had. That doesn't feel normal. If you grow up in a home with a lot of love and affection, it feels normal. But when you don't get that, and all of a sudden somebody's giving it to you, it's like, ooh, this is weird. Well, I don't know about this. I don't like it. I like it, but I don't like it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it can be a lot. So, it's tough to answer on what they know or don't know because a lot of times they can't verbalize it.
Yeah.
If you're an avoidant watching this video, share your thoughts and feelings about it. I would love to see your comments about I'm avoidant and this is what I know about it, or when I recognize it, do I recognize it in the moment? Do you recognize you're being avoidant in the moment? Or, you're just shutting down using all those defense mechanisms like you do unconsciously.
What I hear from a lot of clients, even in my clinical practice, is there will be an awareness of I tend to push people away. I tend to block people out, or I tend to shut down.
Yep.
They'll be able to recognize those behaviors, but they won't be able to kind of see them as a unit or really reflect on their life as a whole and say, oh, this is a deeper pattern that's been, going on, and this is why it's happened, and have those kind of connections. But we do know that it's possible. We do know that there's plenty of avoidants that are, self-reflective and are doing that work. So we know that there's a spectrum. There's people who are very dismissive, who super suppress their own feelings and emotions and just kind of go through life unaware of how avoidant they are. And then we know that there's, the other side of things where somebody might be aware that they're self-sabotaging, but still struggling to get to the point where they stop doing those behaviors.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like where they have moments of clarity. Whereas anxious people, I think, sit with their feelings and they try to consciously think about how they're feeling in their unconscious and in their body. And I feel like for the avoidant, it's only these moments where they have where they're feeling safe, they can explore it, they can think about it, and then they have these moments where they're just like, oh, okay, I realize I'm doing that. But then the walls go back up within themselves, right?
And a lot of times because there's a lot of shame around it. There can be guilt that they've treated someone wrong or have done something wrong. And so in order to cope with that guilt and shame, they just go back to the MO of avoiding. So that happens. And
if you're avoidant, you can work on it.
You can.
You can work on your anxiety. You can work on being avoidant. You can work on your mental health. All of that does change. It takes hard work and consistency, but you can do it. So hopefully this one's been helpful to you. And of course, if you want to get our help personally, you could do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Zoom calls. Coach Victoria is also available for Zoom calls.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.